Hello and welcome to The Real World. My name is Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Real World YouTube channel. Be sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos here at The Real World. If you're a movie fan, you are in the right place. We've got videos on 4K and Blu-ray reviews, reviews of new movies coming out in theaters. Today we're talking all about Ant-Man, the new Ant-Man movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is now in theaters. So we wanted to discuss this new movie as well as Ant-Man's journey throughout the MCU. We're also going to be giving you our rankings of every MCU movie thus far. All 31 films are going to be ranked on this podcast, so it should be a lot of fun. Joining me once again is Bert. How you doing, man?
Hello, how's it going?
Doing well, doing well. So let's
Good.
go ahead and jump right in with, before we get into our main topic, some movie news. Okay, so on episode 36 of the Real World podcast today, we're going to jump in with some movie news that dropped this week. Quite a lot of news, so there's quite a few stories to get through. The first thing I wanted to start with, though, is those Super Bowl trailers that dropped last week. We saw a lot of new footage from new movies that are coming out this year. Some of the ones that stood out to me were, of course, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We got a new TV spot for that, and a little bit of new footage there, some funny moments that I really enjoyed. Very much highly anticipating that movie. Guardians of the Galaxy released a new trailer as well, full-length trailer there. So we got quite a bit of new footage, a little bit of a better understanding of what the plot is there. So was really into that. And then The Flash finally released their full-length trailer. We got a very brief teaser about a year ago at a fan convention, but now we have a full look at this new Flash movie that's been talked about for so long. So I'm very curious about that one. That really got me on board with the movie. I was kind of, I mean, I was going to see it, right? I'm a huge DC fan, but it would really got me into it. It got me more excited about it, I guess you could say. So that was great. And then Fast X, the new Fast and Furious, released some new footage as well. Full-length trailer for that was released online with Jason Momoa as the new bad guy of this long-running franchise. That is the most watched Super Bowl trailer with 295 million views in only 72 hours.
Wow.
So it did better than all the other trailers, which is pretty incredible. So anything stand out to you there, Bert?
Right, with Jason Momoa being in the Fast and Furious, that kind of has me intrigued.
Okay.
I've watched most of those movies, and I don't really love any of them. That's the thing. But
Right.
it seems like the trailer always gets me. I'm like, oh, that looks good, you know.
Right.
One thing that stood out to me was what wasn't there. Like, I don't think there was anything related to Dead Reckoning, the next Mission Impossible movie.
Oh
Right.
yeah, that was surprising. We didn't get any footage for that. You're right.
Very strange. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that was, I mean, those have been huge hits of late. And it's been a while
Right.
since we've had one. I mean, 4 years now.
Yeah, I guess maybe they figure we don't need a trailer. People are already anticipating it. I don't know. I'm not
Marketing,
sure.
it's
Right. I
overrated.
don't know.
Yeah.
Right. It did cost a lot. $7 million for a 1 minute spot at the Super Bowl
Oh,
this year. So
yeah.
that may be
Wow.
part of the reasoning.
Yeah, the Flash stuff though, I mean, that looks fantastic. I mean, they're obviously aiming high, you know, so you can only then hope that you're not sorely disappointed. But I mean, just like we talked about it previously, yeah, I mean, it looks so good. You know, I hope that if it's nearly as good as it looks, then it'll probably be really great.
I agree. Yeah, getting to see Michael Keaton in action was tons of fun. Look at Supergirl. I mean, General
Mhm.
Zod coming back. I mean, there's a
Yeah, yeah, I love
lot to
that.
like there. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's one that really stood out to me. All right, let's move on to our next story, which is Paul King directing the next movie starring Tom Holland of Marvel fame, of course, Spider-Man. He is going to play Fred Astaire, the famous song and dance man of Hollywood fame back from the golden age of cinema, in his own biopic. So that will be a really interesting movie. Paul King helmed both Paddington films, which I think are fantastic, some of the best family movies of recent memory. So this has me really excited that Paul King's branching out to do something different. Tom Holland, I think, is a great choice for this. I don't know if he has any dance background. I know he's very athletic,
Yeah.
so I don't think it'll be a problem for him to kind of nail the musical numbers. But it's interesting that there's also another Fred Astaire biopic in the works, which this happens a lot in Hollywood. I'm not sure why.
Yeah,
It's like two movies
right.
that are the same coming out in the same year.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
Jamie Bell is going to play Fred Astaire.
Oh,
The movie's called Fred and Ginger, so it will focus more on his relationship with Ginger Rogers, who they
okay.
teamed up on several films. An actress named Margaret Qualley is going to play Ginger Rogers. So that'll be interesting to see those two movies, how different they are. You know, it looks like
Right,
they're going to both
right.
be exploring different aspects of his life. And so, yeah, those both have me intrigued.
Yeah, especially the one with Tom Holland, just because he's one of my favorite younger actors out there.
Yeah.
And the fact is, even if he's trained in dancing, I mean, Fred Astaire's known for dancing, right? He's
Right.
like known as one of the best classic dancers of all time.
That's right.
So, not that they can't pull it off, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with it.
Yeah, it's interesting that Jamie Bell is cast because he has a ton of experience with dance. He played Billy Elliot when he was very young.
Yes,
And
yeah, I saw
so,
that. That was pretty good.
yeah, I like that movie.
Yeah,
So it's
quite a
interesting.
bit
And
age difference then, right? Isn't Tom Holland quite a bit younger?
he is, yeah, he's at least a
Hmm.
decade, maybe 2 decades younger
Yeah,
than Jamie Bell. So yeah, that will be interesting to
right,
see. Again, looks like it'll be two different kind of parts of his life.
right.
Okay, moving on with another new movie that was announced that sounds very intriguing as a sci-fi fan, Bert. I know you're a big sci-fi guy too. This movie's called The Astronaut, and they cast Emma Roberts, who is, of course, related to Julia Roberts. I think it's her niece. In this movie, she'll play the lead role alongside Lawrence Fishburne, who's also been cast. Brad Fuller is producing this. He produced the Quiet Place movies, and it is going to be the directorial debut of Jess Varley, who is a writer. She's been writing for several years now, but she's going to direct and write this movie.
Hmm,
The plot synopsis was released. It says, after a space mission gone wrong, an astronaut is found alive in a capsule floating in the ocean. Being kept under constant surveillance and medical testing, she starts to notice strange happenings all around her and begins to believe she did not return to Earth alone. So an interesting kind of could be a sci-fi thriller kind of sounds to
right.
me, kind of a paranoid kind of thriller. So yeah, that one definitely has me intrigued.
Yeah, aliens maybe.
Yeah, sounds like it could be some kind of alien being came back with her or something, or maybe it's just in her head. That could be the
Yeah,
big twist. Maybe I don't
right.
know. So we'll have to wait and see. In the realm of sci-fi movies, another one that's coming out is called Morning. This is a film that is going to star Benedict Cumberbatch, Laura Dern, Noah Jupe, who played the young boy in the Quiet Place films, and
Oh,
Naomi Ackie has also joined the cast.
mhm.
Justin Kurzel is directing. This is a director who did the Assassin's Creed movie. He did an adaptation of Macbeth, set in a near future where the society has a pill which does away with the need to sleep. And with the added help of an artificial sun, that means there's finally no end to daylight, living, and work. But as a young generation grows up deprived of the world of sleep, is it time for them to rebel and reclaim their dreams? That's kind of the plot synopsis there. So really interesting idea. You know, I always like these new kind of concepts that they come up with, and
Yeah.
this was one that I'm very very curious about.
Yeah, me too. Even just the sleeping part. That they could just stop there and have it be
Right.
that, and that probably would be interesting enough. But
Yeah.
yeah, sounds very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to a young filmmaker who's related to a filmmaker we recently talked about in the podcast. Her name is Ishana Knight Shyamalan. M. Night's daughter is going to make her directorial debut with a movie called The Watchers. So this is a film that she's, I guess, written herself and is ready to
Oh,
direct.
okay. I
Um,
wondered.
yeah, I'm pretty sure she wrote it as well.
Okay.
The plot
Just
is
like
an
Daddy-O.
Yeah, exactly. Following in his footsteps there. It says an artist gets stranded in a forest and is then trapped with three strangers being stalked by a mysterious creature. So that's one of these kind of, plots. It sounds very similar to some of his movies. It calls to mind The Village and things like that a little bit. But
Right, right.
yeah, I'm very interested in what she's going to do behind the camera. You know, if she's got the gene, I guess, to pass along this artist kind of visionary movies that he makes. So that one already has a release date of June 7th, 2024. So next year we'll get to see her first movie.
Nice. I like this idea of the daughter, Shyamalan's daughter, starting to make movies, and we can get more of the same. And half the
Right.
time, that's brilliant. So
Exactly, for sure. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch her career, how it evolves.
Yeah.
Talking about the Shyamalan family, M. Night signed a first look deal with Warner Brothers recently. He basically signed a deal, multi-year deal, which will allow Warner Brothers to have first dibs on all of his new projects. So
Oh,
that's kind of an interesting thing because he made a lot of his movies over at Universal. Warner Brothers has new leadership over there. David Zaslav has taken over recently, and of course, the mix up with DC now. They're kind of getting people in place that are real visionaries and artists. And obviously,
yeah.
M. Night is on board with that whole vision they have. So that'll be interesting to see what he ends up coming up with. Actually, his next movie is already titled and has a release date. It's
Oh,
called Trap, and it is
oh,
set for August 2nd, 2024. So not long after his daughter's movie comes out, a couple months later, we'll get M. Night's next film. So yeah, I'm glad that he's got that set up and ready to go.
yeah. I'm glad he's still cranking them out too. I never saw Knock at the Cabin, but like I
Right.
said, half of them are really really good. So I'm glad his career didn't completely stop after Airbender or one of those, that
Yes.
happening. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, he's gotten, I think, kind of back on track a little bit, which
yeah.
is cool. So that's great. Another new film, which already has an actor involved. The actor is very passionate about this project. An actor that's up and coming. He's in several new movies that I liked last year. His name is Barry Keoghan. He's an Irish actor, 30 years old. He started as Druig in Eternals. He was Joker
Mm.
in the Batman. He also was in Banshees of Inisherin, and so he's attached to Billy the Kid, which is going to be a western, obviously about the life of Billy the Kid, and it's supposed to be a more kind of humanizing approach. We've seen him in movies before, but it's kind of always been the kind of legendary outlaw type look at the character. This will kind of go into his roots, his childhood a little bit,
Okay.
and should explore him, more the person behind the legend, so to speak. So that is already set to begin production later this year.
Nice. And that's a character there or a person that could use a good origin story.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really been done. And I'm a
Mhm.
big fan of Young Guns, so I like
Me too.
Billy the Kid and whatnot. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. That should be interesting to see. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is now done filming. Wes Ball, the director, who did the Maze Runner trilogy, he put out a behind the scenes video letting everyone know that they're done filming. They're just going into post production now, which obviously will take a while. That movie is set for May 24th, 2024. So again, next summer, we'll get our next Planet of the Apes movie. I know you still need to see those, so we can maybe do a full rewatch of all the Ape series
Right.
and get your thoughts, Bert. A movie that is one of my favorite animated films, How to Train Your Dragon. They announced that it's getting a live action remake, which kind of took me by surprise. I did not expect this. DreamWorks kind of taking a page out of Disney's book, I guess, and remaking one
Right.
of their animated films that's very popular. Obviously, that became a whole trilogy. I liked all three. I thought they actually just kept getting better.
Really?
They're
Okay.
yeah, they're excellent. They're really well done. A little intense for younger viewers.
Mm,
I'd say maybe like 10 and up. They're
okay.
still like PG, but they the second one and third one get a lot more intense than the first one
Uh,
did. But yeah, I'm curious to see this, especially because Dean Dubois is going to direct it, and he directed all three of the other movies.
oh,
So he's actually the animation
that's
director
neat.
is going to do
Yeah.
the live action version as well. So
I don't think that's happened with
yeah,
Disney.
yeah, I don't think it has either. I don't know if that's ever happened. So very interested to see what he ends up
Yeah.
doing. If the issue I see with that is he'll probably be too slavish to the original and want to
Mm,
make it just a beat for beat remake. I hope he doesn't do that. I hope
right. That'll be
he has,
interesting to see.
yeah, if he has other people involved, maybe they can find another way into it that's a little different.
Right.
But yeah, it very very much piqued my interest. It's set for release March 14th, 2025.
Ah,
Another movie sequel that I thought would never happen, even though they talked about it many times, is I Am Legend. They announced this week that I Am Legend is getting a sequel. This movie will obviously be set decades after the original. The original came out way back in 2007. And Will Smith will return.
oh, really?
Michael B. Jordan will co-star,
Oh, cool.
and they're actually, if spoilers if you haven't seen I Am Legend, but obviously the only way Will Smith can come back is if he's resurrected or something. So they're actually decided to use the alternate ending as
Oh,
canon.
oh,
So,
nice.
and I know we've talked about this before, and you
Oh,
actually prefer
yes.
the alternate ending.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
so they're actually going to make that canon and say, hey, yeah, he didn't die. The one you saw in theaters, that didn't happen. You had to get the Blu-ray to see the actual ending, and that's where they're going to continue the story from there. So very unprecedented. I don't know if I've ever heard of this happening again, but I'm on board because that first one is a great movie.
Well, they've been talking about a prequel for years, right?
That's right.
And
Yes.
and I remember when I watched it in the theater, I was like, boy, I'd like to see more of how this happened. And then they were talking about it, and never happened. And then what's funny is A Quiet Place is kind of like that too. I had a similar kind of vibe, like they would briefly show flashbacks, right, of
Right.
what happened before, and they are doing a prequel now of that, right?
That's right. Quiet Place Day One is coming out, yeah, next year.
Right, right. So the fact that it's a sequel, I mean, I'm still interested, but um, there's been a lot of I mean, I don't mean, are they zombies? But there's a lot of zombie material out there.
Yeah.
So I almost think it would be better to still do the prequel, but they
Yeah.
didn't ask me. So
Right. Yeah. Too bad. Too bad. You should have been a writer on it, Bert. We wanted to dive into, obviously, this is a Marvel centric episode here, and Kevin Feige did reveal some new information on the red carpet of Ant-Man as he's been promoting this movie over the last couple weeks. So I wanted to give fans some updates. He did confirm that Spider-Man 4 is in development. They have the story locked, and writers are now writing the script. So the next Tom Holland Spider-Man entry is in development.
it is Tom
Um,
Holland then?
Supposedly, we haven't heard
Okay,
anything
good.
from him, but
Good.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't see how it could not be, at this point. I mean, with
Unless
the
he wanted
multi,
too much money or something, but
that's true.
yeah, I'd
Multiverse, they
really
could
hate to
say it's
change
a
that
new
up.
guy. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so that's in development now, and
Okay.
we'll have to just wait for a release date. Mutants will be introduced soon. So that means X-Men are on their way. He didn't give it an exact, release, but we've kind of been waiting on this for a while, but he said kind of just be patient. We're going to introduce them in the coming years. Fantastic Four, he confirmed, of course, is moving forward. They've got a director. The director of WandaVision is on board for that. They're going to be a major part of the story moving forward. Those who are comic book fans know how they're tied in with Kang the Conqueror, who obviously was introduced in this new Ant-Man film. And so they're going to play a big role moving forward. They're going to do fewer Disney Plus series moving forward. We kind of had like a cacophony of Disney Plus series last year. I felt like every 2 weeks I was watching a new show that they were dropping online. So it was kind of
Right.
overwhelming, but they're going to say they're going to do probably two a year moving forward instead of like four or
Mm.
five a year, which I think will allow them room to breathe and give people a
Yeah.
chance to watch them and get caught up and that kind of thing. So I think
Right.
that's a smart move. He also confirmed that Harrison Ford is not only playing General Ross, but General Ross is now President Ross. So Harrison Ford again will be playing the President of the United States in the next Captain America film titled New
Wow.
World Order, with Anthony Mackie coming
Awesome.
back as
Mhm.
Sam Wilson, the new Captain America. Very excited about that. Obviously, when they first announced he was cast, I was ecstatic. One of my favorite actors ever.
Mm.
And now he's playing the president again, going back to his Air Force One days. So that'll be fun. Last bit of Marvel news, they shifted a release date for one of their upcoming films, The Marvels. This is the sequel to Captain Marvel. It's also going to tie into the Miss Marvel show that was on Disney Plus. They bumped it from July 28th back to November 10th. So we're going to have to
Oh,
wait a bit longer for this one. I'm sure it's a lot of effects work going into it. They figured they probably
yeah.
needed more time for that, which is a smart move. And so they
Mhm.
actually just dropped a new poster this week for it, and the new release date, which is November 10th. So that'll come out later this year. Okay, we just wanted to cover a couple of trailers now that dropped this week. The first is for a movie called Tetris, which is based on the video game. It's kind of the origin story of this video game that's so popular. Still popular. I still know people who play this on their phone. So it's kind of a 80s adventure movie in a way. It has this kind of, obviously, like the business side of it, but the way it's shot is kind of interesting. It has kind of a actiony vibe. It's got this weird like video game look to it at times. The visuals that they
Yeah,
were doing
yeah.
some really interesting things here that had me intrigued. What are your thoughts on this trailer, Bert?
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't like a standard trailer. Even the
Right.
the Nike movie looked more like a standard sort of oh, here's what happened when this product was trying to take off or whatnot.
Right.
So this looked different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean everybody loves Tetris, right? So I think all these little things from the 80s, 90s, eventually they're all going to get their origin story.
Right.
But yeah, it looked good. I mean, I'd probably watch it. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Taron Egerton is in it. He's a actor I really like, and so yeah, it just had a kind of fun vibe to it that I
Mhm.
really wasn't. I didn't know what to expect, and
Yeah.
it got me interested. So
Mhm.
yeah, that should come out later this year on Apple TV Plus. Then the other trailer that dropped was the final trailer for John Wick Chapter 4, which is coming in March. So just about a month away from this being released. I know you've been watching the John Wick movies. Have you finished all three yet?
I have not.
Okay,
Yeah. Still
gotcha,
on two. I
gotcha. Okay,
took a break for some 2022 films that I was catching up on,
sure,
but
I
I
hear
will
you.
be back at it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, this trailer, I mean, it just kind of shows us a little bit more of the same. There's a little bit more
Hmm.
plot here that we get, I think, but lots of gunplay, lots of fight scenes, lots of chases. It is the longest film in the franchise yet. 2 hours, 49 minutes. So
Whoa.
it is, yeah, we're gonna get our money's worth out of this one. And it looks like they haven't said if it's the final one yet, but it seems like it's wrapping up. It seems like this is kind of the
Mm.
big movie that's going to at least coming to a close. Maybe by the fifth or sixth, they'll close it out. I don't know how long they plan on going. I know they're doing a spinoff called Ballerina, which will be interesting. Ana de Armas is going to be in that. But
Hmm.
look, it's Keanu doing action, so I'm in, right? I like this
Me too.
franchise a lot, and so yeah, I'm all in on it. You have any thoughts on the trailer?
Not a whole lot of extra thoughts. Just it looks good like all the John Wick trailers do, and I'm hopeful that they get better as they go. I think you said that you feel they do in the series, right?
I
Like
do. I
three is even
definitely.
better than the first two.
Yeah, I think they just expand on the mythology more, and you get deeper into the characters and their backstories
Mm.
each movie. So yeah, I think they keep getting better, and hopefully this is much more the same.
Yeah.
All right, last couple stories here. Wanted to talk about Mike Mignola, who has been confirmed as the writer on the new Hellboy movie. Now, Mike Mignola wrote the comics that Hellboy is
Oh.
based on, so he's kind of the guy that
Huh.
created this character and has been writing him for years. So the fact that he's doing the movie version is really interesting to me. I was kind of not expecting that, but he is writing it. It is going to be a reboot again. So we had
Again?
yeah, they're going to reboot it again, unfortunately, which is kind of surprising. I guess they figure
Yeah.
this character has a big fan base, but the only fans I know of are the fans of the Guillermo del Toro version, and
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
care. They didn't care for the new one that they tried to do with David Harbour, and so I don't know if this is going to pay off for them or not.
Right.
But they've got the director of the Crank movies and Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance directing, so that kind of piques my interest. I'm a pretty big fan of his. He's got a really interesting style. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what ends up becoming of this, but to
Yeah.
reboot again is a little precarious to me. I'm not sure.
Yeah. The last one was just what, 3, 4 years ago?
Yeah, just yeah, I guess it's been about 3 years now. It came out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's risky. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they rebooted the Amazing Spider-Man after that came out. I mean, what, two,
Yeah.
3 years later,
True. True.
and that worked. But
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Good point. Well,
mm,
it's all depends on the creative team and what they come up with. So hopefully it'll be great.
yeah.
Couple of things wanted to cover as well. Raquel Welch, famous actress from the 1960s, ended up passing away this past
Oh.
week. She was 82, and she was in movies, a couple of movies that I really enjoy. One of them is called Fantastic Voyage. It's kind of a shrinking movie, which is a lot of fun, kind of sci-fi adventure. And then a couple of westerns I liked. One's called 100 Rifles with Burt Reynolds, and the other is called Hanny Calder, which is a female-centric western. She's the main character in that one. It's kind of groundbreaking for its time. And so, she had a big fan base over the years, became a pretty big star. And then the other person who ended up passing this week is Oliver Wood, who is a director of photography on some really good movies I liked. One of them is Face Off, starring Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. He also did the Bourne trilogy, and kind of ushered in a new era of action filmmaking, really. I mean, his style was copied over and over again. Everyone's trying to kind of emulate that style, that kind of handheld, shaky cam that really,
Right.
kind of put you in the action. So very,
Huh.
very good director of photography. He was 80 years old when he passed away.
Okay.
All right, last thing I wanted to cover before we get into our Ant-Man topic is a movie anniversary this week. Daredevil turned 20. This is the Ben Affleck film from 2003. This movie has not many fans. A lot of people didn't care for this movie. I actually like it. I've seen the director's cut,
Oh.
and I really enjoy the director's cut. It adds about half an hour of footage
Oh.
into the movie, so it's a pretty significant change. And they actually, I forget who it was, but someone interviewed the director, Mark Steven Johnson, and he talked a lot about how, first of all, he was a big fan of the character, and he thinks that might have been part of the problem, is because he tried to put too much into the movie. He was trying to do the origin story and the Elektra saga and introduce Bullseye and all these different elements to it. And he thinks it kind of got away from him a little bit. And Studio Notes
Oh.
obviously came in and they cut out half an hour of footage and that kind of thing. So it was one of those typical stories that we hear, unfortunately. But Ben Affleck was a huge fan of the character. He grew up reading these comics. So, I have a good time with it. I think it does get a little silly in places, and some of the pacing's a bit off. It gets a bit over the top with some of the elements, but I like it. It's one of the grittier ones. It has, I think, a really good cast. Colin Farrell is having a blast playing Bullseye. Jennifer Garner, I think, is fine as Elektra. Michael Clark Duncan, I really like as Kingpin. I thought that was a really good choice, and he did a great job with that role. It's one of those movies that I do own. I have the director's cut. I've watched it a couple times. It's not one I revisit very often, but I quite enjoy it. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't seen Daredevil, but what's funny
Okay.
is I saw Elektra, and
Oh, really?
I'm everybody hates Elektra. I
Right.
remember liking it quite a bit.
Okay.
Is it really bad? I mean, I haven't watched it since it came out, basically, but
I've only seen it a couple times. I definitely don't hate it as much as most people. I think there's
yeah,
quite a
yeah.
few redeeming qualities, but I
Uh-huh.
wouldn't say it's top tier or anything. It's just like kind of
Right.
okay.
Well,
So
Jennifer
I'd like
Garner
to
was really good
rewatch
in
it.
Alias, and
Oh,
this is
sure. I
kind of
like
like
her as an
almost
actress.
like
Yeah.
a yeah, exactly. So yeah, I probably should go back and watch both of those again because I mean those came out in the late '90s, didn't they?
It was like, or I think Daredevil was 03. Yeah, because it's the 20th
Oh,
anniversary this
was
year.
it?
So that was 03. So
Oh,
Electra
okay.
was probably like 04, 05.
Yep. Okay. So I haven't. It's yeah, almost a couple decades since I've seen Elektra, but
Gotcha. Yeah, track down. But actually, both of those have director's cuts that if you can track them
okay.
down, it'd be worth watching.
Yeah, that may be.
All right, folks, now it is time to jump into our main topic today, that is Ant-Man in the MCU. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this franchise that has now been going on for well over a decade, released their latest film, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the third film in the Ant-Man trilogy. And so we wanted to kind of go through each of his appearances in the MCU, cover those, and then we're going to rank every MCU movie, including Quantumania. So join us for this discussion. It should be a lot of fun. So we're going to kick things off with Ant-Man. The first Ant-Man movie is the first movie that he appeared in. This movie was released in 2015. It's directed by Peyton Reed, who actually directed all three Ant-Man movies. He's one of the few directors that stuck around through the whole trilogy and did an entire trilogy of movies in the MCU with one character. I'm a huge fan of this movie. I think this is one of the best origin stories in the Marvel Universe. It is a really fun heist comedy, really at its core. That's kind of the genre they're going for here. I like the kind of ex-con redemption arc Scott Lang goes through, played very well by Paul Rudd. He's tons of fun in this role. Really like him. A very likable character. Very relatable too. I feel like he's the most grounded of really all the Marvel characters. He's not like
That's
this
probably true.
billionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not like a super soldier. He's not a monster. He's not a god. He's just a regular dude. trying to be a good dad, you know. So I relate to him on all those levels. I think you know, that's what makes him stand out for me. It's fittingly a small scale story. You know, it's not one of these big universe ending cataclysmic events he's dealing with. So I like that element of it. I like that it stays very personal and intimate. The father-daughter story, as I mentioned, you know, with Scott and Cassie, but also with Hank Pym and Hope Van Dyne, played by Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly. I think they both have a great dynamic as well, and a great kind of story and arc that relationship goes through too. You know, it's very it's probably the funniest MCU movie. I have a blast watching them. I'm laughing throughout the movie. The supporting cast I think is great. Michael Pena specifically does a great job with his character. Casting is a huge part of these Marvel movies. This is going to come up a lot, I feel like, because that's really the thing I think Marvel does better than anyone, getting the right actor with the right role. Sarah Haley Finn deserves all the credit for that. She's the casting director on every Marvel film, and really? She does a great job finding the right actors for these roles. So that deserves a lot of praise. The visuals here are great. Russell Carpenter shot this. He shot the recent Avatar film, The Way of Water. He's a really good DP. I really like the visuals here, not just with the shrinking, but I mean, with every scene. I feel like the lighting is just really good. The way the camera moves is good. All of that stuff, it works really well. He's also got a great musical theme, which not everyone in the MCU has, but I think his stands out to me. I can recognize his theme pretty quickly, and Christoph Beck wrote that. He's a good composer I like a lot. This was originally set to be written and directed by Edgar Wright, who people will know from movies like Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, The Shaun of the Dead, you know, all of that stuff. He's a great director, writer. He wrote the script. He actually still has a story credit on the film because they did keep quite a bit of his script when he left the project. But this was scheduled to come out in phase 1. This was announced alongside Iron Man, Thor, and Cap as one of the first movies they were going to make. And it ended up getting delayed. There were creative differences. He left the project. They had to get a new director. And so it ended up coming out in phase 2, at the end of phase 2. So quite an interesting history here. And yeah, this movie it works on every level for me. So I'm a huge fan of the first Ant-Man. Bert, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I went back and rewatched all of the Ant-Men recently.
Okay.
And yeah, Michael Douglas has always been a favorite actor of mine. And they actually do some de-aging in this one, which is really good.
Right.
Funny enough, I didn't really care for Paul Rudd. I'd really never seen anything of his that I liked that much. But the second he started in with this Ant-Man character, I loved it, you know, and it is hilarious throughout. And it's great action, it's great sci-fi. I love movies that do the perspective shots of people that are small with people that are big or tiny, or you know, those kind of things. I will say I feel like it used to be all practical and now it's probably all digital, right? Because you know, movies like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I mean, they had actual giant props and that kind of thing. So it's not exactly the same, but I still like those kind of things, and we'll talk more about that as we go through these films. But I really like Ant-Man a lot. Yeah, it's funny throughout. I wouldn't put it, you know, we'll do the rankings in a minute, but yeah, it is a very enjoyable sort of action, funny sci-fi movie. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So the next appearance from him is in Captain America Civil War, which he plays a small role, but he's great comic relief here. He's got some good one-liners. Of course, we get the development of Giant Man, which was a big surprise, which was cool. So yeah, he's fun in that movie. He doesn't have a ton to do, but his role is really well done. All right, so moving on to his next appearance, his next movie, the sequel to Ant-Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp. So this one came out in 2018, right after Avengers Infinity War. Finally, we get the Wasp. Fans had been waiting for her for a while. She and Ant-Man, actually, in the comics, are both original Avengers. They're both in the first issue of the Avengers comics. So we're glad to finally see her in action. Evangeline Lilly does a phenomenal job playing her. I thought her action sequences were lots of fun, particularly the one in the kitchen, where they're all fighting her and throwing knives and stuff at her. I thought that was really cool. Some cool visuals there. You know, they have a lot more fun with the shrinking tech in this one. I think they do a lot more with it. The shrinking buildings and cars and all kinds of fun stuff. I love the Pez dispenser flying at the motorcycle guy. That was a cool action scene. So a lot of cool action here. I think they upped the ante when it came to the action in this one. The character Ghost, who's the villain, I thought she was a good sympathetic villain, but I thought they could have done a little bit more with her. Same with Lawrence Fishburne. I thought he was underused a little bit. They do have an emotional connection there that I think kind of works, but again, it could have been a little bit better plot wise. The characters, there's not a ton of development with them, I feel like, in this that I kind of wanted. So it's not quite as good as the first one for me. I still have a fun time with it though. And there's a surprisingly emotional scene that's kind of funny but dramatic, where Janet, who's played by Michelle Pfeiffer, gets into Scott Lang's head basically, and
I was going to talk about this.
they have this moment with the mom and the dad and the daughter, and it's like it's a funny scene, but it's also like kind of makes me almost tear up. I don't know. I thought it was kind of well done for a challenging scene that I thought they did a pretty good job with. So those are kind of my thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp. What are your thoughts on this one, Bert?
Actually, a lot of similar thoughts.
Okay.
The scene you're talking about where Scott is essentially possessed, it's like out of Ghost, right? Like the Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore. Thankfully,
Right.
they didn't go so far as like smooching, like they did in Ghost. But to me, it just didn't work. It was pretty
Okay.
cringy. But I
Okay.
need to say, like, this is a movie I like. I don't
Okay.
dislike the movie, but it wasn't quite as good as Ant-Man 1.
Yeah.
And my main issue with it was I just didn't really find the plot that compelling.
Mhm.
They find out that they need to get to the quantum realm, and then it turns out that they have the tech to do it. So I'm like, oh, okay. But then the tech gets stolen, and then they spend most of the movie trying to just get that back.
Chase it. Yeah.
And then they eventually, take their trip to the quantum realm. And to me, and we'll talk about a different movie pertaining to that in a minute, but to
Right.
me, it just wasn't that exciting or thrilling
Yeah.
what they show of it.
Right.
And I just thought it would have made more sense just to have them go about trying to get the pieces to create the tech. I didn't really get why,
Right.
other than maybe to tie in the angle of Scott being a thief, like why they had
Yeah.
to, oh, we've got the tech. Here we go. It's someone stole it. It's like, oh, come
Right.
on.
Yeah. Right.
So I just that didn't really work that great for me,
Okay.
but it's an okay Marvel film. I like it, but it's just not, as we'll find out, it's not like in my upper tier or anything like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, his next appearance is in Avengers Endgame. So the next time we see Scott Lang, of course, at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, he's trapped in the quantum realm. And thanks to a very kind rat, he gets out of the quantum realm, and he's back in the real world. But it's 5 years later. All these people have disappeared. His daughter is now 5 years older. So I like that whole sequence of Scott Lang coming out and kind of
Yeah.
discovering this world, and I thought all of that was really well done.
Yeah, me too.
And then, of course, he meets up with the Avengers, tells them what's going on, and he's really the linchpin character for the film. And he comes up
Yeah.
with the time heist idea of
Yeah.
going back and taking the Infinity Stone. So, hugely important character to this film. And I thought all of his stuff in this movie works very well. Paul Rudd again is very charming and fun, and gets in on a little bit of the action too. So, yeah, I have a blast with his role in this movie, which I think is great as well. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on his role in Endgame?
I feel like it's good, and I feel like Marvel does this thing where they have to use this plot device a lot, but they tend to do it pretty well, where it's like, oh, all hope is lost, but there's this one little thing that the bad guy didn't think about, and
Right.
it's the tiniest little thing.
Yes.
In this case, like the ant, the guy in the quantum realm.
Right.
So,
Right.
but yeah, he's good in this. They all have to share quite a small role with given
Right.
all the characters involved. But yeah, he's once again good in it. Yeah, I like what he does to save everyone.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I love that it was the most unlikely hero that kind of ends up being the guy that
Yeah,
saves the day.
exactly.
Cool. All right, folks. Well, that brings us to the latest Marvel movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, now in theaters. This movie grossed $104 million this weekend, so it's already doing really well. By far the biggest opening for an Ant-Man film. So, unfortunately, the critics aren't being as kind to it. It's about
No, they're
47% on
not.
Rotten Tomatoes, and even the cinema score is only a B, which is one of the lowest for a Marvel film. So people are a little mixed on it. Critics are kind of scathing on it. I'm not sure why. Look, I had a blast with this. I thought it was really fun. Look, I kind of have been describing it as a big budget sci-fi B movie because it's really zany and
Yeah.
weird. It's
Yeah. That's
very,
a good way
very
to put
out
it.
there. Look, it's got
Yeah.
a lot of, obviously we're in the quantum realm. That's kind of, they show you that in the trailer. So we won't get into spoilers here. We'll save those for a little bit later. But just kind of my spoiler-free thoughts. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought the visuals were great. It's very creative. The kind of creatures that we're seeing and the worlds that we're exploring here in the quantum realm are very different and unique. It's got a good theme to it. It's got a good message. The family dynamic is very present. We get a lot of Scott and Cassie, his daughter, who's now grown up. We get a lot of Hope and Hank with Janet. Janet plays a huge role here, which
Hmm.
I'm glad because we didn't get a whole lot of her in the last
Yeah.
movie where she was introduced. So it's cool that we get to explore her backstory more. All the acting's great. Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, they're wonderful as always. Paul Rudd is as good as ever here. It's got that good blend of comedy and drama. This one is probably the most dramatic of all the Ant-Man movies. I felt the most intensity out of it, so it works really well on most levels. I think it really is fun. There's certain places where the plot dragged a little bit for me, so some of the pacing was a little off. Even though this is, I think, right at about 2 hours, so it didn't overstay its welcome necessarily. I just felt like it could have picked up the pace a couple times. Music here is good. I thought it was okay. It wasn't, the best Marvel score or anything. Didn't really stand out too much to me. A lot of the action is good, again, but I didn't think it was as great as some of the better Marvel movies. So I had a good time watching it. It's probably one that I will go back to, but I didn't think it quite reached the highs of the first Ant-Man for me. It's better than the second one, though. That's kind of where I am on it. We'll get into spoilers in just a second, but Bird, do you just want to kind of give us your vague kind of spoiler-free thoughts first?
I thought it was great.
Okay.
This movie was exactly the kind of thing I guess I was looking for.
Okay, cool.
The world, this is almost like another planet, and without getting
Right.
into too much detail, you kind of alluded to it too.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't know that I've seen another sort of like planet that's so incredibly interesting and
Yeah.
is and inhabited by such incredible things. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
sort of the best vague way to put it. I
Right.
was so entertained, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like one or two things. It was like dozens and dozens and dozens of different creatures and
Yes.
plant life or backgrounds. It was just
Uh-huh.
so rich,
Uh-huh.
and the artwork and the artistry that goes into this, I can't I could never even dream up what they do. So I was so impressed.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I was laughing throughout the entire film. I
Sure.
mean, I did like it better than the other two,
Hmm.
by far, actually.
Okay.
This was, as we'll see in the rankings, it was really, really high up there
Okay.
as far as some of the best that Marvel's done.
Great. Great. Excellent. Awesome. Well, let's jump into spoilers because obviously people want to know our thoughts on the details. So, if you've seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, we're gonna spoil it now. If you haven't seen it, you can click ahead, look at the timestamps down below, and you can go onto our rankings. But for those of you who have seen it, let's talk about all of the craziness that's going on here with Kang. Obviously, Kang is kind of the
Yeah.
big character here that they're introducing, and I thought the backstory with him and Janet was excellent. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed
Yeah.
that stuff. That was really compelling and
Hmm.
interesting. Obviously, we'll end up finding out more about him as he's going to appear in future films, but the setup for him was great. Jonathan Majors did a great job playing this character.
Yes.
Really liked his acting opposite Michelle Pfeiffer. They do that de-aging thing with her again, and she did a wonderful job with her role. So yeah, I really liked Kang. MODOK was so interesting what they did with him. Totally different origin from his comic book counterpart. But
Oh.
they tied it in with the first Ant-Man, which I thought was great, which is a great idea. Darren Cross, Yellow
Hmm.
Jacket in the first Ant-Man. This is where
Yeah.
he ended up, and this is what ended up happening to him. It was such a goofy design, but it looks
Hmm.
just like he does in the comics. So I was all for it, and I thought they really pulled it off, which was kind of amazing. Then, we've got Bill Murray appearing here. He does great in his small kind of basically a cameo, but it was fun to see him, pop up.
Hmm.
It's got this big, large scale battle at the end of it that I thought was really impressive.
Hmm.
Most of the effects here, obviously, this movie is basically nonstop CGI effects. I mean, they're
Right.
in CG environments, and look, a lot of that I'm not a fan of, but I thought here mostly it worked really well. I thought
I
there were
agree.
only a couple of moments where it kind of took me out of the movie a little bit. It looked a little flat and kind of strange. But overall, they did a really good job, the effects team, on making this world believable. And obviously, that has a lot to do with the actors making it believable as well. So they pulled out off most of that really well. The kind of inciting incident that happens here, I felt was okay, but it was a little strange to me, where his daughters created this map of the quantum realm, and just the whole thing of it's been several years, obviously, and
Hmm.
Janet's never talked to them. How did they hide this from her and Scott this whole time?
Right.
And
Sure.
it
Yeah.
was just that was just kind of what put me off a little bit. It was a little strange, but it's a way to get into the movie, so I could kind of let it slide a little bit. The opening scene, it's just this is kind of a nitpicky thing, but we open with the Marvel logo, and a lot of times movies open that way. The Marvel movies open that way, but sometimes they do a cold open before the logo comes up. And I
Oh.
thought that Janet and Kang opening scene would have been better before the logo, because
Oh.
we jump straight from that to Scott like walking down the street. It's a very, I think, and they played it for laughs, I think, but I think it could have
Right.
worked better and separated those a little bit more, and that might have worked. But again,
You
it's
may be
kind of
right there. Yeah.
yeah, it's something that I would have changed for sure. So yeah, as I mentioned before, some of the pacing is a little off. That's kind of another nitpick of mine. There's some wasted time, I feel like, with some characters, but I also I thought Kang was a great villain, but I felt like they should have shown us a little bit more how much of a threat he is. They do a pretty good job with that scene where he attacks those people and their
Yeah.
buildings and all that, the buildings that move around, and that attack, that kind of worked for it. I would have rather seen him do a couple more things that were a little more
Sure.
menacing, maybe. The intensity really ratcheted up in the end when you think
Hmm.
he's gone. First of all, that great scene with Hank Pym bringing the ants in was just awesome. That he kind of saved the day with the ants. But after that, they go back to Earth, and we see Kang comes back, and he has this big fist fight with Ant-Man, and that was an intense scene. And I thought that
Yeah.
was well done. But I just feel like they kind of copped out a little with tying it all up with such a nice bow. I almost would have liked for Scott and Hope to be trapped in the quantum realm at the end of this movie, and they have to get him out, in another movie. But again, I kind of like that they. I'm of two minds on this, because I kind of like that they did just make this movie as good as it could be and
Hmm.
tied it all up. Those are kind of some of my more spoilery thoughts. What are your thoughts on some of this stuff, Bert?
There's some fair points there. I will say though, on as far as him showing his powers, I think I read a review or two that said that kind of the same thing, that we don't really get to see much of his powers on display. But I felt like the movie kind of set it up so that he was deceptively powerful.
Hmm.
So like at some point, Scott's like, I'm gonna stop him, and he's a giant man, and he doesn't realize how powerful this guy is. And then when he gets attacked by them, he's like, you don't realize I've already killed Avengers before. And I kind
Right,
of like
right.
that side of it. Like, sure, it seems like they might be making progress, but really they did nothing to him.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
see both
good
sides
point.
of it though.
Sure, sure.
And then I wanted to point out that portal scene where they're flying through to the quantum realm was really radical. That was really
Yes,
awesome.
it was.
Uh and then it was a little bit slightly too long, like probably about 10 minutes too long, I
Right.
think. And my only real criticism is that this is a dark, visually dark movie. And
Yep.
there were once or twice where I lost track of the action and what was happening, but not
Yeah.
most of the time. Most of the time it was
Yeah.
really good. And I wonder how well this is going to look on my screen at home, because it's so dark. Am I going to have
Yeah.
to, jack up the brightness? And then,
Yeah.
then it doesn't always look so good either that way.
Sure.
But they may adjust for that. I don't know. But I could mostly see everything, but there was so much going on in the background. Sometimes I would have liked to have a little more light, but then it's
Yeah.
harder to make it look right.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, as they make it a little darker to hide the visual effects, and
Hmm.
so yeah, that was another criticism of mine I was going to bring up. But
Mm.
like I said, overall it didn't bother me too much. So
Yeah.
I still had a fun time with it. Also, I can't go without mentioning Broccoli Man, one of my favorite new Marvel characters. Just so creative. Again, that's
Yeah,
really one
yeah.
of the highlights is just the creativity of the creatures and that
Uh-huh.
they interact with and the environments and everything. It just was fun to finally really see the quantum realm because we've never really seen it. We
Yeah.
saw it
Yeah.
briefly in, like I said, Ant-Man and the Wasp, but here we really get to explore it the whole movie, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and one more thought. The director, I mean, he obviously did all three. So to me, it felt like the first two were good, but this was an like more of an epic kind of feel to it. And the fact
Yes.
that it was the same director, I almost feel like he put all the pieces together, got the budget green lit, and just went all in. So that's the feeling I got. I thought this was, I mean, getting closer to something like Endgame and some of the much
Sure.
bigger movies in the in Marvel.
Yeah, by far the biggest of all these movies that they've made for Ant-Man so far. And he's kind of a premier Avenger now. I mean, now that Cap and Iron Man
Mhm.
are gone, he's one of the big characters that's been around for a while, and I'm sure he'll play a big role moving forward. So yeah, I'm glad they gave him the budget and they let him kind of let loose. I feel
Yeah.
like this is Peyton Reed, the director, has said many times how inspired he is by Star Wars, and I feel like a lot of this movie is kind of the cantina
Oh,
scene on steroids,
oh
and
yeah, a lot of Star Wars type feel to it. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. So yeah, I'm glad they let him do that. Let us know your thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in the comments if you've seen it. Let us know your favorite moments. We'd be happy to have a discussion with you about it down there. Now we're going to jump into our rankings of these Marvel movies. So all 31 films that take place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe will be ranked here now. So first, I want to talk a little bit about Marvel and just what I think of them as a studio, this franchise, what I look for in a Marvel movie. It's really the same thing I look for in most movies. I mean, really, my favorite Marvel movies tend to be the ones that are simpler, that really focus on a character and that really tell a story in 2 hours or so. I'm not crazy. I used to like look as a comic fan. I used to be super into the whole like the Easter eggs and the little connections between the movies, and all that's fun. I think they do that really well for the most part, but that's not really what I'm looking for anymore in my Marvel movies. I've kind of changed my tune on that a little. In that, really, I really want more personal, intimate films about characters going through development, going through arcs. I want to see personal stakes, not so much universe-ending stakes. That tends to be kind of the thing they go for. But if they can make it personal, even if it is a big movie, if they can make it personal,
Right.
that's what makes it, makes me relate to it. It makes me get invested. So,
Sure.
like we mentioned before, they do a great job with their casting. So if they focus on the characters, make me care about the characters and their struggles, make me, relate to them. That's kind of more what I'm into. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for themes. A good message in the film is something that I'm interested in. The visuals obviously are huge for any movie, but Marvel, I think they do get criticized a lot for kind of cookie cutter films that are formulaic and visually kind of flat and kind of can tend to look the same sometimes. So I tend to prefer the ones that are more unique in their visual style, with their camera work and color and things like that. I think that the blending of practical and digital effects is always going to be important to me. When it feels more tangible, I tend to enjoy the movie a lot more, can get invested and feel the weight of what's happening to the characters. The music, I like, great themes and emotional music that can support the characters and the story, pacing, all these things that we talk about with any movie. But Marvel tends to, Kevin Feige's been criticized for kind of hijacking some of these movies and making them this big universe connecting thing that he's got in his head rather than letting the directors just kind of tell their story, putting the director's vision on display over, his own, kind of ideas and style. So those are kind of some things that they get criticized for that I tend to agree with some of the time. Also tone. We're going to talk about tone. I feel like in a lot of these movies, and striking the right tone is very important. So those are kind of some of my thoughts on Marvel and what I look for, and kind of will tell you, because we're not going to talk in depth about each of these movies that we're going to rank. So that's kind of my idea of, the ones that are higher, I think, do that stuff really well.
And I look, and those are all good points. I look definitely for a good story and one that I can follow. I don't know all the I don't know any of the comic background, so I'm just
Right.
a guy that's walking into the theater going, entertain me, and seeing what happens. And
Right.
I will say most of these films do. There's a few that don't, but
Right.
not many.
Hmm.
Um, so I also look for films that are grounded because obviously these are almost all of these are very effects heavy, especially at times. And so how well does that come across, and does it feel grounded, and does it feel like I'm watching a cartoon that they're trying to make look real, or how well do
Right.
they pull it off? So
Hmm.
I like effects a lot, so I also
Sure.
try to be critical a fair bit.
Right.
And then also I look for payoffs. Like they take us on this journey. How good are those payoffs? These are mostly superheroes we're talking about. Like
Hmm.
how good are those final battles or those moments in between? How good are those payoffs? So that's some of the things I look for with each film.
Great. Great points. Great points. All right. You ready to kick it off?
Yeah.
All right, folks. We're ready now to rank all the Marvel movies. Get ready to take this journey with us. Here we go. Bert's going to kick us off. What is your least favorite Marvel movie? We're starting at the bottom.
Okay. Least favorite Marvel movie is Shang-Chi and the 10. Is it the 10 Rings?
Yes.
Yeah, that is not one that I just didn't get the whole thing. I thought there was a lot of cartoon-ish kind of stuff that happens. The payoffs just made no sense to me. Talking about being grounded. I mean, unfortunately, I think this was the one that was the least effective for me. I think the rings are better in Sonic's universe, and so that's my my least favorite film. Um,
Gotcha.
Next, I give it 1 star. Next up,
Okay.
I've got Black Panther 2. That's another one that I didn't like the world they threw us in. I felt like it was really kind of a mess of a film all over the place. It never really settled on any good point in the film where I thought, oh, this is a good sequence.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, both those films actually look good and are well made. So I give them a little bit of credit. I'm at
Mm-hmm.
1.5 stars on Black Panther 2, unfortunately.
Okay.
Um, Next up, I've got Eternals. That's one to me. I really wanted to like it, but it felt more like like a TV movie to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why,
Hmm.
but I just didn't think it didn't really bring much that was of much interest to me, and it was pretty long. Next, I've got the first Black Panther. Unfortunately, it's decent, but nothing that really blew me away. And the final action scene, the fight, just really was not very impressive at all. So unfortunately, not great. I gave that one 2 stars. And
Okay.
then the last one of the first few we'll mention here. This actually starts where like every movie, including this one, are movies that I like. So literally every other Marvel movie I would give a thumbs up to.
Okay.
So
Okay.
starting with Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I probably
Okay.
give 2.5 stars to when we talked about that at length.
Okay. Sure. Sure. Great. Okay. Great. Great way to kick us off. So now I'll give my the ones at the bottom of my list. We'll start with number 31. At the bottom is Captain Marvel.
Oh,
Captain
okay.
Marvel, yeah, I just was not a fan of this. It's not
Sure.
one that I've desired to revisit at all.
Okay.
I really think, unfortunately, the character is just unlikable. I don't really care for her Carol Danvers.
Gotcha.
They
Yeah.
just don't give me enough to hold on to with that character and that story. They telegraphed the twist of the villain. I could tell Jude Law was going to be the bad guy in the opening scene. It was obvious. Bad 90s nostalgia. I feel like they rely so
Uh,
heavily on that. The
yeah.
blockbuster and then the 90s songs and just very on
Sure.
the nose
Sure.
and kind of silly.
Gotcha.
I do like the supporting characters though. I think Lashana Lynch is great as Monica Rambeau. Sam Jackson is always great as Nick Fury. Getting to see a
Yeah.
younger version of him was fun. Ben
Hmm.
Mendelsohn is wonderful as Talos. There's elements of it that I do like. So it's not a movie that I think is terrible. I don't mind watching. It's just not one that I've desired to come back to. So I gave that one one and
Gotcha.
a half stars. That's where I am there.
Oh,
That's my
okay.
lowest rating
Okay.
for a Marvel movie. In at number 30 is just last year. This one came out. Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really was not
Oh,
a fan. I didn't mind it on my first watch, and then when I watched
oh,
it
uh-huh.
again, I really thought that the tone just really messed with me. I feel like it opens with a great scene. Christian Bale's wonderful in this. He's the
Mhm.
MVP of this movie.
But
as
he's
he is
almost in
in.
a different movie too, the way he
That's what I had a problem with. I felt like he's in such a different movie that it just didn't connect with the rest of the film. It's all the
Sure.
rest of it's pretty much a comedy, I mean,
Yes.
really. But he's in such a serious, dramatic film. He's genuinely scary, and again, I thought he was just great in it. But the rest of the movie, I can't stand. I thought the comedy was way overdone. It's just not a cohesive, tonal film for me. I just felt like Taika Waititi kind of took it too far into
Okay.
kind of his silliness. So yeah, that one is 2 stars. It's not terrible,
Okay.
but it's one that I'm not a fan of. To 29, we have Black Widow. This movie I thought was too little, too late for her character. First of all,
Yeah, sure.
it should have come out in like phase 1 or phase 2. It might have been good then, but it just really kind of has a messy script, ridiculous action sequences. The final act of that movie I felt was like, what is this? I don't even know what movie we're in now. She's flying around and doing weird, all this kind of crazy stuff. So just kind
Yeah.
of, felt really flat for me. There are some, again, the casting's great. There's fun new characters. David Harbour as Red Guardian is great. Florence Pugh as Yelena is wonderful. Rachel Weisz is in this. So again, good casting, characters that I kind of liked, but they were just in a movie and a story that I didn't care for at all. So that one's at 2 stars as well. Moving on to 28. This is most people's least favorite. This I find at the bottom of most Marvel movie lists. I like it a little better than most people, but not much. It's Thor: The Dark World. This one, I think that unfortunately the plot is kind of bad. The villain is very forgettable and has no personal connection to the hero whatsoever. He's just kind of stock bad guy they plugged in, I feel like. It's got the character development I don't even think is that good. There's a little bit with Thor and Loki that I think is
Mm.
good. Hiddleston and Hemsworth are wonderful together as always. I don't think they gave Jane enough to do. Natalie Portman is misused here as well. It's got a cool kind of sci-fi fantasy vibe to it. There's some cool visuals in it. But overall, it's just not one that I'm crazy about. So 2.5 stars for that one. Moving on to 27, that would be The Avengers. Joss Whedon's first Avengers movie. I think this is a movie that's a lot of fun to watch, but I don't think it's very well shot, honestly. I think some of the lighting here
Oh.
is really bad. Either scenes are way too bright or way too dark.
Hmm.
Just the lighting was just very, very strange for me. Does have a great score. Alan Silvestri's theme for the Avengers is wonderful. It's kind of a shallow story. I don't feel like there's much depth to it. The pacing isn't great either. I feel like they're on that helicarrier for way too long in the middle of the movie. The cast play off each other well. There's some fun dialogue. That final battle is really cool. It's really fun to watch that. So again, not a bad movie. It's just not, especially when compared to the other Avengers movies, it pales in comparison. So, and they brainwashed poor Hawkeye in his first appearance,
Oh
which
yeah.
was such a bad choice.
Kind of got the
But
shaft there, yeah.
yeah, so that one's 3 stars. Again, not terrible, but not great. So now, the 3 stars, we're kind of getting into the better movies, I guess you could
Okay.
say. 26 is Spider-Man: Far From Home. This was the second Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland. Look, Holland's great. He's always great. Zendaya is great as well. I like their chemistry a lot. I just think that this movie, it kind of has an odd. I like Mysterio as a villain, but his backstory is very, again, just a weird kind of thing that they did for why he became a bad guy. The visuals, a lot of them are cool. A lot of them are fun. I just feel like it feels too long. It has some just makes some odd choices story wise and character wise that I wasn't a big fan of. It does have a pretty good payoff at the ending. I like that it's kind of dealing with, the death of Tony Stark after Endgame and what Spider-Man's dealing with there. So it's not
Yeah.
terrible, but it's just not one of my favorite, especially of all the Spider-Man movies. So that one's also at 3 stars.
Yeah, I have my own issues with it, but I have it a lot higher.
Okay, gotcha. All right, well, those are my bottom ones. Bert, you want to take it with your next batch?
Okay, so my next one is Doctor Strange, the first one.
Okay.
A film I do like. I just find that it's just kind of long overall. Like I kind of feel like this should maybe be a 100-minute movie, and
Right.
there's not a lot of action, so
Mhm.
it's not bad.
Yeah, gotcha.
The scene where he first realizes becomes enlightened or whatnot. You could say that scene is really visually impressive,
Yeah.
especially in 3D.
Right.
So it's some good parts, but yeah, it just doesn't do a whole lot for me.
Gotcha.
The actors are good in it.
Hmm.
Then next up, I have Black Widow. I'm kind of with you with what you said. I did enjoy it, but not among Marvel's best, certainly.
Sure.
Then after that, I have Captain Marvel, and I actually
Mm.
own Captain Marvel. I've only seen it one time. I remember thinking it was good, especially I like Samuel Jackson in it again. But you're totally right. I mean, yeah, she's not the most likable the way they wrote it,
Yeah.
strangely. But I remember there were definitely I saw it in the theater too, and there were definitely
Mm.
some good action I felt. But again, not the best. I do have that at 3 stars though.
Right.
Next, I have The Incredible Hulk, and this is the one obviously with
Mm.
Edward Norton.
Hmm.
I had never seen this before. I actually
Okay.
bought it to watch
Oh,
it on Blu-ray,
okay.
and it's good. But I feel that what really kills it for me, honestly, is the CGI. And I've talked to you
Oh,
about this before. I just feel like I'd so much rather see Bill Bixby in makeup than the CG, especially with the close-ups that they attempt. I mean, that's really tough. They get really close in there on the close-ups and in bright lighting too, and it really suffers. That hurts it a lot because I feel like that should be an emotional moment when they pull in close to Hulk and you see his
right.
pain and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so ultimately though, I give it 3 stars. I like it, but it's just
Okay.
not one of my favorites.
Okay.
Norton is great as usual in it.
Yeah.
And then I've got the next one. I've got Iron Man 1, and this is another one I like quite a bit. But I've got it at 3 stars. It's a good origin story. It's just not. It doesn't reach to the level of some of the ones we'll end up talking about.
Mm.
But obviously this one to me kicked it off. Well, I think it was actually the first
It was.
Marvel film, right?
Yep. That's right.
And what a great
2008.
kickoff! And you put Robert Downey Jr. in pretty much anything, and he's going to bring it to life. And
Yeah.
so it's a very good tale. I don't necessarily love the ending with just the Iron Man and the bigger Iron Man facing
Right.
off. It's okay, but
Sure.
it's a very good it's a very good one though. I like it. And then my last one in this group is Iron Man 2 actually. I went back and watched all the Iron Man again. And this one just some of the CGI isn't the greatest. The story is just kind of okay. Like Tony's grounded for part of the movie. I don't know. It wasn't nearly as good as I remembered. I mean, I own it. I enjoy it, but honestly, it's probably my least favorite of the Iron Men trilogy there.
Gotcha. All right. So you would actually have Iron Man 1 above Iron Man 2.
Well, I'll just say that I feel like they're about equal, but Iron Man 2 doesn't necessarily improve on the first one.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, great. All right, I'm going to continue here. I'm at number 25 now with Avengers Age of Ultron. So this is the movie I actually saw the most in theaters. I saw this 5 times when it came out. I was a pretty big fan of this movie. Unfortunately, over time, the issues become more glaring
Yeah,
with this one. And there's a lot I like in this movie. The first of all, the visuals are much better. Cinematography is far superior to the first Avengers film.
sure.
The Hawkeye stuff is great. My favorite Avenger gets, his whole family revealed. All that's wonderful. The introduction of Wanda and Pietro is great. I really like their
Yeah,
backstory. That's really well done. Unfortunately, everything else kind of falls flat. I think Cap and Iron Man come out probably the best, other than Hawkeye. I think their characters are well developed, although it kind of goes back on some of their development from their previous movies, namely Iron Man 3 and Winter Soldier. But it's fairly well done. Thor is wasted completely. He's got this whole weird side subplot that I have no idea what they were thinking.
yeah,
It's just to set
sure.
up Infinity War, and it really bogs the movie down for me a lot. So that I have an issue with. The Banner Natasha romance is a little strange for me. I don't think it
Yeah,
fully works.
I agree.
It's interesting, but it just something about it feels a little off. So those are the negatives. The positives, of course, are the action sequences, which are stellar. The effects are pretty seamless, even though there's a lot of them. And Ultron himself is great. I really like Ultron. James Spader does a great job with it. Even though he's not as powerful as he is in the comics, he's the only villain who can actually defeat them. He actually ends up
Oh,
defeating the Avengers, but Overall, I think this movie is fun, but just has a lot of issues. So I'm at 3 stars
Okay.
on it, and so that's why it's at
Okay.
25. At 24 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. As we talked about recently, it's just kind of not as good as the first one. It's a little flat visually, I feel like, as well, the color palette and
Yeah.
everything. So just not quite as good as that first movie, although Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd are great in it. At 23, I have Thor Ragnarok. This is another Taika Waititi film. This is a 3.5 star movie. So these are getting a little better for me. It's very silly. It's very much a comedy. It's kind of
Yeah.
a throwback to like Flash Gordon-y, weird sci-fi, super zany, colorful type of an adventure movie. And I have a lot of fun with it. I think there's pretty good character development. The villain is okay. It's Cate Blanchett. I thought it could have been stellar, and it wasn't as good as it could have been. What they do with Hulk is kind of interesting, but I kind of prefer Hulk more like the Ed Norton version. He's a little more tortured soul, and he's definitely not that
Right.
here. But
Right. Right.
it's interesting. So I kind of like it. There's some negatives about it. I think Tessa Thompson's great as Valkyrie, great new character there.
Mhm.
That she's another one they kind of squandered in Love and Thunder for me, but it's a lot of fun. Yet it has some emotional weight to it. I thought he balanced the tone better here than he did in Love and Thunder, so that's why this one's a lot higher than that one. 22, I have Iron Man 2. So this one for me is 3.5 stars. Jon Favreau coming back from Iron Man 1. There's a great story about the kind of self-destructive nature of Tony Stark that he's going through as he's facing his mortality. And, it's a lot about legacy and his father and what he did. And Mickey Rourke, I really like as Whiplash. I think he's actually really good in this role.
I didn't really buy him that much in
Really?
as the bad guy. Nah, not
Okay.
so much. Oh, it was okay, but
Okay.
kind of
Gotcha.
out there.
I also am
Yeah.
a huge fan of Sam Rockwell. He's the MVP of this movie for
Sure.
me. He's hilarious in every
Yeah. Yeah.
scene. I wish they'd bring him back. He's just such a great character. So funny. I like the action a lot in this movie, actually. I think the racetrack scene is really cool. I think the final battle with the drones is a lot of fun. So there's a lot I like about it. It's just that I feel like they're trying to set up the Avengers a lot in this. And so Nick
Uh,
Fury kind of pops in a weird moment just to kind of give exposition. Black Widow
yeah.
shows
Yeah.
up and she's kind of cool, but she doesn't have much purpose in the story.
So
So
sort of weird. Yeah.
they took some big missteps here, and I think Feige realized that.
Mm.
And Favreau, I've listened to the commentary, and he mentioned a lot about, yeah, there's a deleted scene here, and he keeps mentioning like in the deleted scenes you can see this. They clearly wanted him
Oh,
to edit it down a lot, and there's a
gotcha.
lot more that it should have been. So that
Oh,
unfortunately is down at 22, even though I still have a lot of fun watching it. It's one that I rewatch quite often, actually. And then at 21 is Spider-Man No Way Home. So this is one that I greatly enjoy for the most part. I
mhm.
think that it's overcrowded with characters, even though I think they
Yeah.
actually use Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield very well because they're not in it a lot. But I
Right.
think there's too many villains, first of all. They're Lizard and Sandman feel like they're kind of just tacked on. Like they're not even in the they're
Yeah.
just CG characters that they decided to throw in.
Well, and
Um,
ironically, Sandman and Spider-Man 3 also, I mean,
yes,
there were too many villains in that movie too.
exactly.
Poor Sandman, right?
They didn't learn their lesson for some reason. Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, it's kind of a cool, introduces the multiverse, and this is really like I feel like Peter Parker's origin story. This is where he like fully becomes Spider-Man to me. What they do with Aunt May is great. Again, Zendaya is great in it. Willem Dafoe is wonderful as always. He
Mhm.
is so terrifying in this movie.
Yep.
I feel like it almost could have just been him, but
Right.
yeah, I have a lot of fun with it. It's just that again, certain things kind of bog it down. It's a little too big for its britches in a way.
Hmm.
That it's not top tier. So I have that one at 3.5 stars at number 21.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
moving right
So
along.
yep, go ahead.
My next five. Okay. Next up, I've got Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and this is a 3-star film for me. I hadn't seen it until after I watched the Guardians in Infinity War and Endgame, and so went back and watched them, and I thought it was good, very good. It's I mean, obviously there's a lot of humor. The effects are really good. It's just a fun overall movie. Doesn't reach quite that sort of top tier for me, but yeah, did enjoy it. Next up, I've got, and now I'm moving into sort of my 3.5-star films. I've got Thor 1, the very first Thor movie. And that's sort of a, for a character that's so, I mean, he's like this god and has all these powers. I love how they sort of broke all that down, stripped him of his powers. I mean, it's just a fun, more simplistic story. And I saw that one in the theater actually when it came out. Most of these I did, but just a good movie with good effects, funny at times, and literally down to earth. So Thor 1 is a good one.
Yeah.
And next up, I've got Guardians 2, and a lot of the same kind of stuff, but I thought it was a little better done, and it was funnier. I feel like the characters kind of settled into their parts better, and some better effects. So I've got that at 3.5 stars. Next, I've got the first Ant-Man in there, and we talked about that at length, so I won't say a whole lot about it. I feel like that's kind of like Thor 1. I like a lot simpler than what the movies end up becoming. Not that it's a bad thing, because sometimes that can be really good, and it is a very good movie. I mean, 3.5 stars out of 5. So
yeah.
And then my last one in this grouping is Doctor Strange 2, directed very well by Sam Raimi. Completely different than the movie that I thought I was going to be watching, but so much better than the first one. I love all the places the movie takes us to, and some great effects. A bit disturbing at times, which is Raimi's signature, but overall a very enjoyable movie. I've only seen this film once, but eventually I'm going to pick it up on HD Blu-ray. But yeah, I've got that at 3.5 stars.
Awesome. Great. All right, let's jump into my next batch then. My number 20, that is Captain America Civil War. So this is a very ambitious film. It's essentially another Avengers movie. Cap here, he's dealing with government intervention, and the Avengers get split up. I thought they handled that pretty well. I thought the movie stayed fairly well focused on Cap and his relationship with Bucky, which is obviously central to this story. I almost wish it focused more on that, because that's obviously where we're coming out of Winter Soldier into. Right. So the movie is it's trying to do a lot, and it succeeds most of the time. I just feel like it is a bit long. It does have a lot of characters. They don't all get their fair shake. I kind of feel like, it works better as a Captain America movie than an Avengers movie, which again, that's the title. So I got to give the Russo brothers big props for it. It's got some good action sequences. It's got some funny moments as well. So overall, it works. I do like that the finale gets very personal with Bucky and Iron Man, and all that. All that's very emotional. It works really well. So I like it. Some of the visuals are a little flat. The airport scene I thought could have been better. I thought it was fun, but I think it's like it's at an airport. It's kind of gray and boring. So the use of color there I thought could have been a little better, a little more dynamic with the color palette and the lighting. But again, one that I enjoy. It's 3.5 stars. At number 19, I have the latest Marvel movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. 3.5 stars. I thought it was really solid. It was fun. We talked already about it. If you want to go listen to our review we just did, that'll tell you kind of why I have it there. At number 18, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This one I thought was really good, really emotional. I mean, obviously they're dealing with the loss of a real life actor, Chadwick Boseman, as well as the character. So they had a very challenging task here that I thought was difficult. And for me, they pulled it off almost flawlessly. The villain here, Namor, is a great character. I thought he was fantastic. His backstory's great. I really liked him.
With the feet?
Yes, exactly.
I just thought that was ludicrous. But that's me. I don't know.
I know. As a comic book fan, I can buy into anything like that because I know him from the comics. So
yes, that probably helps.
Yeah, it does. It does for sure. Yeah. So yeah, again, they're continuing the story of kind of the theme of vengeance and that whole thing. There are unnecessary characters here. I don't know why Everett Ross shows up. Martin Freeman's character has no reason to be here. There's a whole kind of side plot with him and Julie Louis-Dreyfus' character. I don't know why that's in the movie. So that's why it's much lower than I actually initially had this higher, but that bumped it down a little bit for me. So that's where Wakanda Forever sits. Ryan Coogler, I think, is a great director, has a really great vision. 17 is Doctor Strange, the first Doctor Strange film. I think it's really cool. It's trippy. It's got a cool origin story. It's exploring a side of the MCU we hadn't seen before, the kind of mystical side. It introduced all of that really well, has a great final act. The
Yeah,
backwards time thing, and then the
that
time
thing
loop.
is cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that was really just visually, this movie is fantastic. So I like that a lot. I think a couple characters are kind of underused or just kind of not used very well. Like Christine, Rachel McAdams, she's kind of barely in the movie. Even
Yeah.
Wong, I thought his introduction was okay, but he's not used as well here as he is later. So all in all, I enjoy it. Tilda Swinton's the MVP here. I thought she was wonderful as the Ancient One. But yeah, it lands at number 17. So it's another 4-star movie I really enjoy. And I've actually enjoyed it more since, every time I watch it, I feel like I like it a little
Mm.
more. Another one I liked a lot more on this, I think this was my third viewing of it. I just watched it last night. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Oh, really?
I thought this was really good. I had it a lot lower. Like I said, it was at like 3.5 stars. I bumped it up to 4 because I really think the visual style specifically, the use of color, the practical sets, all of it is really well done. It does get a little too much at the end. I agree with you there. At the end, they kind of go a little too crazy with it. But to me, they kind of earn it. They do a good job introducing these new characters, very relatable characters, feel very grounded. The family relationships are great. That whole dynamic I really enjoyed. It kind of has its own mythology to it. Just really had a great time watching it last night. So that one lands at number 16.
So next up, I've got the first Captain America film.
Mm.
And this is a movie I like a lot. I feel like it is a little long. Obviously, ridiculous visuals. I didn't. Sorry, who's the actor that plays
Chris Evans? Yeah.
Chris Evans? Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't really know him before this movie, and I thought I was wondering if it was two different actors.
Yeah.
That's how. Oh,
It's
you too?
incredible. It's incredible. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was mind-blowing.
Yeah, exactly. The transformation is incredible, and there's a
Right.
lot of fun stuff here. The journey that the film goes and takes us on. Sometimes I thought there were some unnecessary scenes where I didn't really get a lot out of it, but overall, a very very good movie. I mean, I've got it at 3.5 stars. Next, my next few films here are all 4-star,
Okay, cool.
and that starts with Thor Ragnarok. And we
Mm.
talked about this on our podcast last year, but
Hmm.
what a great, fun, colorful, silly movie. It's a comedy, and I just laughed so much.
Right.
And it's great to see these characters that at times have been really serious
Hmm.
be so silly. And
Right.
every time I watch it, I just am in hysterics. So that's a 4-star film for me, just based on the comedy mostly.
Right.
Next, I've got Thor Dark World. And
Mm.
to me, I think I like this one a lot more than you did.
Hmm.
I just really think the visuals here are incredible. Some of the
Hmm.
CGI isn't 100%,
Right.
but I really love the Thor and Loki stuff. And
Hmm.
I mean, this film just is incredible. I've seen it now just twice, but I mean, it's one of those that I can't wait to watch again because there's so much in it,
Yeah.
and it's really rich. And I don't understand the hate for it.
Yep.
I think it's a really, really good film.
Yep.
Let's see. Next up, I've got Spider-Man No Way Home.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about it. I like the nostalgia part of it. I mean, I was a huge
Hmm.
fan of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man
Yeah.
movies, all three actually, even the third one.
Right.
I had my own problems with that third one, just like this movie, though. So just a lot of fun action, great special effects, and a
Mhm.
good nostalgic story. And I still don't know who my favorite Spider-Man is, by the way.
Yeah. They're all good. They really are. I like all of them.
Yeah. I don't know about Andrew
In their own
Garfield,
ways. Yeah.
but anyway, I think that rounds out my next series of 5 films.
Okay, great, great. All right, I'll move on with my number 15. Are you ready, Bert? It's Avengers Infinity War. So
15.
yeah, I know. So, this movie, it's great. Look, it's balancing so many characters, such a
Yeah,
big storyline that the only way they could really do it is if they focused on the villain, which was such a bold move.
that's true.
I
That's
really
true. Yeah.
commend them for that. I just prefer a hero movie where the heroes win. So that's what really bogs
Gotcha.
it down for me. It feels like a part one. To me, it feels like just kind of an incomplete story, but it's got some good visuals. I think some of the CGI is a little off. It mostly is good though. There's a lot of it. They focused where they should, which is on making Thanos a real character. And Josh
Yeah,
Brolin is
exactly.
incredible in the role.
Mhm.
He is, just menacing and powerful and everything a good villain should be, has a point of view, so I got to give him a lot of props, obviously, for it. It's a really difficult movie to pull off. I just don't find myself going back to it as often as I do
Okay.
some of these other films that I
Really?
feel like balance their story a little better, are more focused. I feel like, there's just characters that they just had to put on the back burner, like Captain America. I feel like doesn't really have much to do here.
Yeah.
And all the Earth heroes. I think Iron Man and Doctor Strange and that whole storyline's great with the Guardians and even Thor and his little side quest he does. But
Yeah.
some of the other character stuff are a little bit for it. But again, very difficult to balance all that. And they did, I think, as good as they could because those characters end up shining in game. So,
That's why it's good as a back-to-back viewing. That's why it's perfect that way.
exactly. See, if they were one movie, they would be probably at the top, but they're unfortunately not. So that's at
Gotcha.
15. That's 4 stars. Really solid. Great movie.
Yeah. Fair enough.
14, I have Spider-Man Homecoming, which is one of my favorite Spider-Man movies ever. I think this
Yeah.
is a great outing. It's, teen high school comedy, basically, with
Hmm.
superheroes. And they make great use of Tony Stark. They make great use of the villain here is fantastic. Michael Keaton,
Yes.
best part of the movie. He does a great job as
Yep.
Vulture, very grounded, relatable, kind of sympathetic villain. I like that it's small scale. It's all about your friendly neighborhood
Yeah.
Spider-Man. You get to see him helping out regular people. That's a
Right.
lot of fun. They also did something really clever. Comic books, they always have the thought bubbles, above the character's head so you know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And they can't do that in movies. So what they did was they gave his suit an AI that he can talk to. And it's Jennifer Connelly, who's married to Paul Bettany, who is Iron Man's AI,
That's who does the
Jarvis.
voice? I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
it
Huh.
is. It is. So yeah,
Like her
she
a
does a
lot.
great
Yeah.
job. And so yeah, that was just a clever way of kind of, bringing that to life.
Yeah.
My favorite scene, one of my favorite scenes in any Spider-Man movie is when he's trapped under the rubble and he says, "Come on, Spider-Man," and he kind of becomes the hero and lifts the rubble up. That's straight out of a comic book. That's a comic book panel
Oh,
that they adapted. So as a comic
okay.
fan, I really like seeing that. And yeah,
Gotcha.
John Watts directed this. He did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
At 13, I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I
Oh,
think this movie's a blast. I have a
yeah.
great time with these Guardians movies. They're very James Gunn. They're very much the director. His personality comes through in these movies very well. This sequel is very character centric. It's not very plot focused. It's I kind of call it like a hangout movie. You're just hanging out with the Guardians for a while, and I
Yeah.
just have a great time with these characters.
Right. Right.
Wild visuals. Again, kind of reminds me of Quantumania and some of the weird worlds they
Yeah.
visit and characters they interact with. Kurt Russell's great. He's a great character in
Yeah.
this. It's very funny. They make great use of the soundtrack. That's kind of what the Guardians movies are known for. And
Hmm.
standout is Michael Rooker as Yondu. I thought he was
Yeah.
fantastic and kind of provides the heart of the film. So yeah, really
Uh-huh.
big fan of Guardians too. That's another 4 star movie. At number 12 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This one is another one of these movies where kind of that's going to be the story going forward here, kind of as we get into the upper tier movies where they let directors kind of just go wild, really
Hmm.
let loose. And Sam
Yeah.
Raimi's style is on full display. That horror
Right.
vibe is there. It's got a great theme. It's got, the Danny Elfman score, that whole music battle they have, this two Doctor Stranges. They do a great
Yeah.
job with
Right.
Wanda. She's a great character here. I really get her motivations. I thought it
Yes.
was great. They introduced America Chavez, great new character, very naturally, I thought, into the story. There's another one I rewatched recently, and the use of sound is really good in this movie. It can be subtle at times, it can be really big, but they just do a great job with it. And I think this is maybe Cumberbatch's best performance as Doctor Strange. I think it's
Oh, probably. Yeah.
really underrated. I think people don't give him enough credit for this movie, particularly. He's playing 4 characters here,
Yeah.
first of
Right.
all,
Right.
and does a great job with distinguishing all of them. So yeah, it's one that I have a blast with. I've got the 4K, and it looks great. So that's my number 12, and then at number 11 is Iron Man 3.
Mm.
So Iron Man 3, I think, is a really great character study on Tony Stark and
Yeah.
what he's going through after the events of the Avengers, dealing with
Yeah.
PTSD. It's just such an interesting way to take that character that I wasn't expecting. This one, again, Shane Black, his writing and directing is very much on display. His sensibilities of, when it comes to the comedy and the action sequences here is great. The Air Force One rescue is such an awesome scene. Really like that. And the whole idea of the movie is kind of, does the man make the suit or does the suit make the man? He's kind of dealing with that inner turmoil. His relationship with Pepper is developed really well. It's just really, really good. A very focused movie. It's not one of these big universe-ending things. Again, it kind of goes smaller scale in many ways. And it may be Robert Downey's best performance in all these movies.
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
he does a really good job in it. So, yeah, that's my number 11. Let's go on to your next batch here, Bert. What do you got?
Okay, and this goes into my 4.5-star films already.
Yeah,
So
mine will too. My top 10 are all at least 4.5.
okay, and the first one I'm going to talk about here is Ant-Man 3, which we just got done talking about, so I won't say a lot. Great film, loved it. There's so much in it that I'm going to have to, have several viewings to even unpack it all. So
Right.
great stuff.
Yep.
So I'll just jump right to my next one, which is Spider-Man Far From Home.
Okay.
And I think I said this before, but I do have kind of some issues with the movie, but I try not to overthink it. Because I love Jake Gyllenhaal is great as Mysterio. I like how they take it overseas to where Mysterio just happens to be.
Right.
No, but there's just some great visuals here, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's funny, and I just love Spider-Man anyway. So it's just a terrifically fun film. It's not perfect, but I have so much fun that I don't really care. I mean, that's kind of the theme of a lot of these, frankly, in my top 10.
Sure.
So yeah, it's Far From Home. So then next I've got Iron Man 3.
Okay.
And I just rewatched this. Some of these, if when I rewatch them, I get a little better focus. And this one jumped up a lot in my list. I didn't remember it being as good as it is, but yeah, this is one that's not sort of like the all out epic, like a lot of these that are remaining are sort of the all out. I would even describe, Ant-Man 3 that way.
Sure.
But this is really, first of all, the scene where his home gets destroyed is incredible.
Right.
And then I love the fact that then he ends up flying way out to Tennessee and that whole thing. And we don't get anything like that really anywhere else. In Iron Man or most of Marvel, really. So some of those scenes where he's just talking to the kid and stuff, those are great,
They are.
And then the end scene it's kind of a fun action movie. It's a bit out there with all of the additional Iron Men flying around, but I like it. I just love it. It's just a lot of fun.
Right.
So that's pretty high up there for me. Next, then I've got Spider-Man Homecoming, and this is about as perfect as a Spider-Man movie can get. Maybe shy of like Tobey Maguire's first two.
Right.
I just love it. Just Michael Keaton is just so terrific, and I love the moment where Spider-Man realizes who he is. And that he's the dad.
Right.
It's my stomach just dropped like when that first when that happened. But it's just he's so terrific, and to see this just enthusiastic, innocent kid that is portrayed that Peter Parker is in this movie, and to take on, well, first of all, just the talent of Michael Keaton behind it. I just think it just adds so much to it, and it is a very grounded film for the most part. I mean, most of it could almost sort of really happen, right? Like even the thing that flies, like it's all pretty realistic and grounded. Love it. Great stuff. Stuff. It ends a bit abruptly, actually, but still great. And then I think I have one more here. Yeah. So my last one in this grouping, so this will be my number 6, I think, is Avengers 1. Okay. And I probably like it more than most. I just still like just seeing these guys first all come together at once. I still just think it's so much fun, and it's hilarious, and some of these characters meeting for the first time, I think is why I still kind of gravitate toward this one a lot.
Sure.
And I think it's got some good action, but mostly it's just bringing all these guys together and seeing how they behave with each other and try to fight each other, or and then Loki is so good, and the fact that Thor has this to answer to because this is his brother. I mean, there's just a lot of different stuff that, to me, it still mostly works. It's a 4.5-star film for me. For now, but I thought it was quite an achievement, obviously, when it first came out, and I still enjoy it quite a lot.
Great picks. All right, we're in the top 10 here, so this is top of the list. Best Marvel movies. Again, all 4.5 stars for me. So at number 10, I have Black Panther, the first Black Panther movie.
Oh, really?
I think this is really great world building. Again, a corner of the MCU we hadn't seen before. So they're introducing a lot of new characters, a whole new place. Wakanda is just such a fascinating country. It feels authentic and real, yet otherworldly at the same time. I really liked what they did there. This
Sure.
movie has fantastic visuals. The use of color here is great, vibrant scenery. We're seeing some really cool action. There's a great action sequence in a casino, which I think is really well shot, very dynamic and interesting. I enjoy all the characters. I think it has a good blend of humor and drama, very emotional. I think the villain, Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, does a wonderful job. He's one of my favorite
He
villains
is good. Yeah.
they've ever done. Just so good. So yeah, music as well. The music, it blends, traditional African tribal music with modern hip hop in a really fascinating way. So all in all, I just enjoyed. I think Chadwick Boseman was such a great actor. It's so sad that he's no longer with us,
Yeah.
but yeah, he does a great job playing this role. And so yeah, that's at number 10. Ryan Coogler did a great job with it. At number 9, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So this is Joan Anthony Russo's first foray into the MCU. They'd only made a couple of, I think, one movie before this and some TV.
Wow.
They really
It's
burst onto the
crazy.
scene with this. Yeah, it's very impressive what they were able to do here.
Yeah.
And they really had a perspective, which is something I like a lot because they wanted to make a political thriller with Captain America. So it's kind of that genre, and it works
Right.
so well.
Yeah.
Great development of Cap's character, of
Hmm.
Black Widow. I think Scarlett Johansson is at her best here,
Yeah.
with the action and with the kind of the dialogue scenes and the connection between those characters. Sam Jackson is finally utilized in a way that's compelling in these movies. He did such a great job here. That car chase is incredible.
Yeah.
There's a great twist with the villain that is
Hmm.
just so handled so well. Just a great movie, well shot overall. They, specifically went for that kind of Bourne style, kind of, not as colorful. They went kind of, more dull, but that was kind of intentional because they're telling a kind of darker story. So, yeah, all the choices they made with Winter Soldier, I thought were fantastic. They did a great job with that movie. And at number 8 is Thor. I'm a huge fan of this first Thor movie. I think this is the best we've ever seen from the character. I think it balances the humor with the kind of, it's really like a kind of Shakespearean drama in a way, and that's why they got Kenneth Branagh to direct it. And I really like his
Right.
direction. I think it's really smart. All the choices he makes, the some of these scenes with Loki and Anthony Hopkins,
Yeah.
very emotional, very
Sure.
intense. All of that's handled so well. It's a fantasy movie. The design of Asgard is fantastic as well.
Right.
Patrick Doyle's theme for Thor is great.
Hmm.
It does have some really cool action sequences as well. I also like all the Earth characters. We got Stellan Skarsgård in there, Kat Dennings. It's really fun. They're fun. They're funny. I enjoy being with these characters and going on this journey with Thor as he kind of learns this valuable lesson about humility, and it's kind of got that fish out of water element to it. So all in
Right.
all, I'm just a huge fan of this movie. I have a blast with it. It's one I can watch anytime. So that's in at number 8. At number 7 is Ant-Man, which we already talked about. So Ant-Man, I think, is just really, really fun. So that's way up there for me as well. Big, big, big fan of that one. One of the best origin stories they've done, I think. And then at number 6 is Eternals. So Eternals, I know a lot of people don't like this movie. I get why. It's a difficult movie to watch, kind of. It really is not very accessible. I feel like it kind of, there's so much going on. There's so many characters. It takes place over literally millennia. So it's a big
Right.
epic movie that I think requires multiple viewings. And on every viewing, I actually have it on in the background here. I like it more because they really
Mm.
have such an interesting mythology they're dealing with. They're dealing with themes. There's biblical allegory here. There's all kinds of like,
Mm.
themes about faith and it's fascinating to me. All the things that are inside this movie. The way they introduce each character, I think, is interesting. The visuals I find to be stunning. Most of it was shot on location, which is another criticism. A lot of Marvel movies aren't. They're shot kind of on a sound stage with green screen backgrounds. So this one is very different in that they went
True.
around the world to shoot this movie, and it
Yeah.
has some, I think, fantastic shots of landscapes and I just really enjoy the cinematography, the lighting, a lot of natural lighting here, which is another thing that sets it apart. It feels different from the MCU, and I think
That's
that's
true.
why
That's
a
true.
lot of people don't gravitate towards it, is because
Ah,
it's a kind of change of pace. It feels honestly feels more like a Zack Snyder DC movie to me, than a Marvel movie. In many ways, there's not quite as much humor. Although Kumail Nanjiani I think is hilarious in it, but yeah, again, the more I watch it, the more I like it. The powers of these characters, I really feel the impact and how powerful they are. The way they shoot it, I don't know. There's just something about it, and I think a lot of the visual effects are seamless here. So if you haven't seen it twice, I recommend watching it again. Chloe Zhao directed that. She's kind of an up and coming director, and she's I think, very thoughtful in a lot of the choices that she made there. So yeah, that's in at number 6.
okay. Okay, yeah. So now getting on a top 5 here. I've got number 5, I've got Avengers Age of Ultron.
Okay.
And to me, this is just one that steps up everything from the first Avengers film.
Yeah.
And I just the visuals are incredible. I think there's more action in this one.
Hmm.
And I just basically it's just like leveling up everything. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. So
Yeah.
we talked about it at length previously, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I've got that actually at my number 5.
Gotcha. Great. All right. Well, I'll jump in with my number 5, which is The Incredible Hulk. I
Wow.
feel like I'm the biggest Hulk fan in the world or something. A lot of people really don't like this at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, it's down there with the lower ranked movies on a lot of lists that I see. But
Hmm.
look, I think this is very compelling, first of all, from a character point of view, of a character who is, again, kind of like a tortured soul.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a life. I mean, he's on the run from the government. He's hiding out.
Right.
So, Norton, I think, just does such a great job with the psychology of this character. The supporting cast is great too. I think Liv Tyler does a great job as Betty.
Yeah, she
Uh,
is good.
I really felt their relationship and their connection they had. I thought it was really well done. Of course, William Hurt is great, who we lost recently. Then Tim Roth, I think, is a very menacing bad guy. I think he does a great job as the villain. It's kind of scary. It's got some moments that are a little horror-esque. I enjoy all the action sequences. I think they're really fun. I think it's very well paced. It's a pretty quick paced movie. So yeah, all in all, I just think this is really enjoyable. It's layered. It's different. It has its own style to it. And so yeah, Louis Leterrier, who directed this, doesn't get enough credit. I think it's fantastic. I would have been so interested to see what Norton would have done with the character moving forward. Not that Ruffalo's bad. I think he's great, but I think it probably would have gone a little bit of a different way. And that's why he ended up leaving, is because he wanted it to be more deep and kind of psychological, and they kind of wanted it to be more of an action movie. And
Comedy. Yeah.
yeah, right. So yeah, so that's at number 5. I think it's excellent. Every element of that movie. It's another one of the ones that I've rewatched the most.
It's not a
Um,
bad pick. I just wish on those close-ups with when they come in on Hulk, I just wish I
yeah,
was looking at a person. I just
yeah.
can't get past the
I get what you mean. Yeah,
CGI,
Lou Ferrigno
unfortunately.
unfortunately was not available to take over the role. So
Right.
yeah. I think to make him that large, you kind of had to go CGI and to do certain things they wanted to do with him. But
To make him that large,
um,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, it doesn't detract it too much for me though.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
CGI. So all right, what's your number 4?
Okay, my number 4 is Captain America Civil War.
Okay.
And this is just it's basically an adventures film, like I think you
Right.
said.
Right.
And I just pretty much love every minute of it. It feels like
Mhm.
one of these sort of epic scale films.
Yeah.
And I think that airport scene is pretty great. It's a little
Mhm.
weird that that's our first introduction to Tom Holland Spider-Man, right? Isn't that when we first see him,
Yeah,
or,
it
or around
is.
that time,
Yeah, well, he has a scene with Tony right before that in
Yeah,
the
okay.
bedroom, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
to
And
me that's one thing I'll mention that bogged it down a little, is the way it felt like Spider-Man was kind of shoehorned in. I thought they
yeah,
did a better job introducing Black Panther naturally into the story, but
sure.
Spider-Man, it kind of felt like we shot this scene and then just put it in the movie, and it felt a little weird, but you know,
Yeah,
it's fine.
and
He's
you would
still he's
you
still great in it.
right, you would almost, it's almost surprising that he got so many good movies after that on his own.
True.
But and then the stuff where the battle between Captain America and Tony Stark,
Yeah.
Iron Man. I mean, some of those scenes, and some of them were without their face masks on and
Right.
stuff. I just thought all that stuff was really good. I don't know how
Yeah.
it relates to the comics,
It's very close,
You know,
actually. The
I
Civil
was
War comic is very
really,
similar to that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because the whole thing with Bucky, you know, being involved, and it's, I mean, Captain America's, he's not even the one that's directly responsible for the ire, you know, of
Right.
Iron Man.
Sure.
But it just works great, you know, and so it's something we don't see often in these films, is someone that's actually really angry, you know,
Yeah.
between the superheroes, you know.
Right. Yeah. That all that really works. It's very character based, and the motivations all really work. And Zemo is a great villain who doesn't get
Mhm.
enough credit either, who kind of,
Sure.
orchestrates that whole thing. I really liked
Right.
Daniel
Right.
Bruhl plays that role, and he did a really good job.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just to me, it's one of those epic ones.
Hmm.
I think I have it at 4.5 star. I do. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I just love it. It's an epic Marvel film, one of the best. Yeah.
Yep. All right, moving on to my number four, which is Avengers Endgame. So Endgame is just tremendous on every level. I feel like they really just kind of put it all out there. I mean, right, this was the big finale of the first three phases of the cinematic universe. We're, bringing an end to both Cap's story and Iron Man's story, and they really just went all out. The writing is great. Marcus and McFeely, who wrote all the Captain America films, as well as Infinity War and Endgame. They're tremendous, and their writing is just so good. They really understand the characters. They care about the characters. They make us care, and
Yeah.
just did a great job with the plotting. And I mean, it's so intricate,
Yeah.
dealing with all those characters and everything that's going on in that movie. So they just did a great job with it. The 3 hour runtime, I think it just allows room to breathe for certain characters. Everyone gets their time to shine. So I thought that was very necessary. It's the big payoff. It's very emotional.
Hmm.
There's a big battle at the end, which is kind of ugly. It kind of doesn't look as good as I would like it to look. It's kind of gray and muddy a little bit. I'm not
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
about that, but a lot of cool stuff happens in there,
Yeah.
and they stay focused on the characters throughout, which is important. I have admitted before, I openly sobbed in the theater when Iron Man died. So obviously had a big impact on me.
It's very
Um,
sad. Yeah.
the Captain America moment at the end with him and Peggy dancing is just such a perfect moment to end on. Again, brings it all back to the
Yeah.
characters
True.
and what
Yeah.
it's all about. So yeah, it's a 5 star movie. It's at my number four.
Good. Next, number three, I've got Captain America 2, Winter Soldier. And
Nice.
yeah, you brought up some good points about this. I mean, I actually have this at 5 stars. Is it a
Yeah,
perfect film? I mean, I could always criticize pretty much anything, but
sure.
I thoroughly enjoy every minute of this from start to finish.
Yeah,
And it's 1,000% entertainment. So
right,
that's what
right.
I'll say about it. And you said some good things, but it's just got that sort of epic feel without being the entire cast. You know, it's
Right,
obviously it's got a few of the other heroes and whatnot, but
right.
I can remember moments in the theater where I was just like, wow, are you kidding me? Like those kind of things, like the giant heli carrier, whatever they
Oh
call it,
yeah,
that thing, and then when it comes crashing down, and
right.
and then some incredible like close fighting, like the elevator scene. And I mean, there's
Right.
just so many good moments. But yeah, it's a 5 star film. I can't say enough about it, really.
Yep. Excellent choice. Excellent choice. All right, moving on to my number three, which is Guardians of the Galaxy. This is James
Mm.
Gunn's first foray into the MCU. This one I vividly remember seeing in theaters. It's one of the first times my wife and I hung out. So that's why it's very memorable for me, kind of have a personal connection to it in that way. But look, it's very quirky, it's very silly,
Yeah.
great characters, the character dynamics, and the way all these characters come together and end up forming this team. It's just really compelling and interesting, and they find an emotional way in through that opening scene of him and his mother's bedside as she's dying. So it kind of grounds it in real emotion, because it gets really, really weird and wild throughout the movie, but it stays focused again on
Yeah.
character. Star-Lord, I think Chris Pratt is wonderful in this role. I couldn't see anyone else playing this part. And so that's really well done. The action is really good.
Mhm.
Visuals are phenomenal. A lot of really colorful moments here. Really comic booky in that way. Very much pays homage to the comics that it's based on. Makeup and hairstyling, stands out here big time. A lot of prosthetics, a lot of, characters that are green or all kinds of different colors, that they had to
Right.
do.
Right.
The CGI on Rocket and Groot are fantastic as well.
That's a good point.
And
It is. It is
they,
really, really good.
yeah, they really bring those characters
Especially
to life.
Rocket.
Yeah, definitely. And Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper do a great job voicing those roles.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, they do some really good work there. So yeah, it's one that is infinitely rewatchable. This is one of those ones that I think I saw it at least 2 or 3 times in theaters. And then when I got the Blu-ray, I remember the day I got it, I brought it home, watched it with my brothers. And as soon as it was over, we were like, you want to watch it again? I'm like, yeah, let's watch it again. We turned it right back on and watched it a second time. It was the
That's
only time
awesome.
I think we've ever done that. So yeah, obviously very, very fond of this film. So yeah, it's at number 3. All right, I'll give you my number 2 as well, which is Iron Man. The original Iron Man movie. First of all, it started this whole thing, so it deserves a lot of credit for that. If this had failed, there would be no MCU. So
Right.
that's a big part of what makes it great. It's also just a great movie. I think this movie is really fun to watch. Of course, Robert Downey Jr., we've mentioned him a number of times because he's just so identified with this character. It's a perfect marriage of actor and character.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best in movie history, honestly. It is just
Sure.
great. He so plays that character and inhabits that role. It's Jon Favreau coming in and really putting his stamp on it. Jeff Bridges is great. Gwyneth Paltrow is great. Really like the music. I think it's really, really good. He's got a great theme. Action sequences are tons of fun to watch. Again, that blending of practical and digital effects, which has kind of set the standard for. I felt it's so good. It feels so grounded and real,
True.
like it
Yeah.
could really happen. It's also kind of experimental in that this was a character that not a lot of people knew about.
Mm-hmm. I'd
Even
never heard of
comic,
it.
yeah, even comic fans. He's not like an A-list, like Cap or
Oh,
Spider-Man or Hulk, like one of these
right.
really big ones. He's kind of like a
Sure.
second tier character. So it was really risky,
Yeah.
and it really paid off because they just told a great story, a great character arc. It's well paced. It has that perfect blend of humor and heart that I feel like Marvel movies need to strive towards, right? I feel like this is the
Sure.
perfect balance of those two things. So yeah, it's just, again, one of these I can rewatch anytime. I feel like I have a great time every time I watch it. So yeah, it had to be near the top, and yeah, it landed at number 2.
Gotcha. I do my 2 and 1 at the same time because they're as we are talking about before, they're basically the same, or the one long film. So at
Okay.
number 2, I've got Endgame, and number 1, I've got Infinity War.
Okay.
We said a lot about them in the past, but
Right.
just imagine the blackboard that must have been up in a room with dozens of people around it trying to figure out. I mean, where you want to start and where you want to end, but all of those characters, all the writing and locations. I mean,
Yeah.
it just blows my mind. Like, to
Yeah.
me, more so than probably any film or group of 2 films in history, maybe
Right.
rivaled only by Lord of the Rings trilogy, right?
Sure.
To figure out how to put that massive of an idea together
Yeah.
and actually bring it to life and have it be that good.
And Lord of the Rings had a blueprint. They had books. This one,
Right.
this one
Yeah.
has comics, but there's no comic that. I mean,
Right.
it's a slight adaptation of the Infinity War comic, but it's not.
Right.
It's not a beat for beat, remake of it. It's like very much their own story. So yeah,
Exactly.
very impressive.
Yeah. And obviously I was coming to it, knew nothing about the comics. So I'm just like, well, what are the odds that Infinity War is going to be a great movie when all these characters come together? I didn't even think I was going to like the Guardians of the Galaxy characters because I hadn't seen them before.
Right.
But everything about it is just great,
Yeah.
and so epic. And so the reason why Endgame is 2 and Infinity War is 1 is that kind of like with Lord of the Rings trilogy, I just feel like there's enough in that first film that there's just better scenes as far as action. I feel like some of the really disturbing stuff with Thanos was really powerful.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't end with I'm sorry, I'm talking about in Infinity War.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
And then whereas in Endgame it ends a little happier, I guess you could say. But
Sure.
I just felt in Infinity War it was just much more impactful.
Yeah.
With the things that happened to some of the characters. Very
Right.
disturbing, but
Sure.
effective all the same, I guess, is what I'm saying. I mean, I just can't top some of the action scenes in Infinity War, like in New York City, you know,
Mm,
and in a few other scenes. They're just
yeah.
when Spider-Man goes up in the ship, even. I mean, there's just
Right.
so many. I just overall enjoyed that one a little
Yeah.
bit more,
Sure.
and so that's why I put it ahead of Endgame.
Hmm.
But Endgame is right there with it.
Yeah.
I don't absolutely love the time travel part of it because they already
Mm,
have a time stone that can do time travel. So we
mm,
talked about this before.
right.
I feel like they again invented time travel in a different way. So
Right.
you know what I mean. So I was
Yeah.
a little head scratching about that. But
Right.
both films are 5-star. They're just tremendous as one film. I mean that's about the best 1-2 punch of anything that I've ever watched on film.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very good. Very good movies. Epic in their scale and scope, and yeah, the amount of characters and all of it. And they, bring it to a satisfying resolution, which is really a feat.
Yeah,
So
please
yeah.
most everybody too. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know many people that I don't know. I've never met anybody that's like, oh, those movies really blew it. I've never met anybody that said that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I forgot to mention, and when I was talking about Endgame, outside of just Iron Man and Cap, of course we lose Black Widow, and that scene is one of my
Yeah,
favorites in the movie between her and Hawkeye.
sure. Oh, it's
Very,
yeah,
yeah,
very touching. Yeah.
it is. It is. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Hawkeye, he's my favorite part of Endgame. He's my favorite part of any of these movies. And he was handled really well in Endgame after not seeing him. That's another reason I don't like Infinity War. He's not in it. Him and Ant-Man are
Right.
both missing. So
Fair enough. Yeah.
they get to their time to shine though in Endgame. So yeah,
Yeah.
excellent choices for your top two there. All right, we're on to my number one to close out our rankings. It is Captain America: The First Avenger. This
Mm.
movie is right up my alley. Anyone who knows me knows the podcast. I'm into this World War II pulpy adventure stuff. That's kind of my thing. So punching Nazis. I like punching
And yeah,
Nazis, I
Indiana
guess.
Jones. Yep. Uh-huh.
Right, exactly. So yeah, it's tons of fun. Like this, like you mentioned
Sure.
before, the transformation is just handled so
Yeah.
well. The opening of us getting to know Steve Rogers before he transforms is so great. He's such an endearing
Hmm.
character. And after he transforms, he's the same guy, but he's, now a super
Hmm.
soldier. So he can do all these incredible things and, help people out like he's always wanted to do. It's great. It's got a great villain. I think Hugo Weaving is wonderful as Red Skull. He's doing a
Hmm.
great job kind of hamming it up. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Watch him do his thing. And the production
There's our Lord of
design
the
is
Rings connection, by the way.
there you go. Yeah, there are several Lord of the Rings actors in MCU. Kate Blanchett as Hela and
Oh, sure.
a few
Yeah, that's
others.
true.
So yeah, production design is awesome. It looks
Yeah.
so cool. It's got a great look to it. The visuals, just the whole visual style, the camera work, the cinematography, the lighting. I think
Hmm.
all of it's distinct, right? It's got that very like
Yeah.
1940s vibe, kind of
Right.
that softer look to it. It's just really, really well done on every level. Joe Johnston directed this. He did another one of my favorites, The Rocketeer. So it has that
Yeah.
just kind of fun, spirited, kind of adventurous vibe to it that I'm just really into. I like Steve and Peggy's romance. I think that works
Sure.
exceedingly well. Haley Atwell is excellent in this, as well as Sebastian Stan as Bucky.
Yeah.
Introduction of that character. It was really well done. The Howling Commandos, who he kind of teams up with in World War II, they're a lot of fun as well. And it's just got a good pacing. It's got great effects, great action,
Yeah.
lot of heart. So really like this one. Steve's journey. He's kind of an interesting character because he's kind of perfect. He's kind of like the do-gooder good guy, and those guys can be boring often. But I think Evans finds a little bit of darkness in him. He finds kind of a way in that's interesting. Steve kind of is constantly trying to prove himself, because he is kind of weaker
Right.
and smaller than everyone else, and that's kind of his flaw. And he's a little overzealous at times, but he ends up finding Peggy, and she kind of already knows that he's the guy that he wants to become, and that's kind of his
Hmm.
journey. And I think the self-sacrifice at the end is very moving, and that
Yeah.
scene they have is great. That the dialogue there is really well done. So all in all, just super fun, enjoyable, very entertaining, very emotional as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
Cap, he's at the top.
That is a good pick. I thought Endgame was going to be at the top, if I must say.
Yeah,
But
it
those are all good picks, though. Yeah.
all those top four, I gave them all 5 stars, and so it was kind of
Right.
interchangeable almost.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Cap, he's the one that ended up being my favorite because that one is just
For
again,
good reason.
yeah, it's very me. It's very
Yeah.
very personal pick.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that'll do it for us on episode 36 of the Real World Podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We very much enjoyed this episode. Preparing for it was a lot of fun. So let us know your rankings in the comments below of all the MCU movies. Let us know your thoughts on the new Ant-Man film as well. Be sure to give us a like, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos here at The Real World. Thanks, Bert, for joining me.
Oh, of course. Yep.
All right. We'll see you next time right here on The Real World.